Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and in this video, we're going to be going over an article here from Polygon that I'm going to go through live for the first time and give you my reaction to it as a full-time content creator for Diablo Immortal, who is running a bunch of clans and really grinding the game pretty hard. So we'll go through and talk about my perspective compared to the article, and the article is from Polygon. I'll always link to the original source down below if you would like to pull up the article for your own reference. But yeah, let's get into it. Alrighty, so first of all, we've got the headline here of it's not just because it's exploitative that Diablo Immortal doesn't work. Monetizing a loot game isn't just predatory, it's not fun. Okay, so we got some hot takes here. Let me shrink this down and be able to zoom in a little bit as we go about the article right here for you. So, alrighty, a month after it launched, Diablo Immortal has among the lowest Metacritic user review scores of all time. Well, so this is different. This is Metacritic. That's not what the scores are in game. Disgustingly designed, reads one typical comment. On Apple's App Store, however, Diablo Immortal has a rating that is accurate. I checked it on my Apple App Store, and finally a mobile game done right. Yeah, you're gonna get obviously on something like this, you'll get many different viewpoints and all that's accurate so far. Both the ratings are right. So Diablo Immortal is not just a new entry in Blizzard's storied action role-playing game series. It frames Diablo in a new context. Several new contexts, actually. It is designed primarily for mobile devices with touchscreen controls. That is true. It does have a PC client, but you can very easily tell that it is a mobile game. It's a massively multiplayer online game with a shared world where you see other players running around. There are a bunch of different instances, though, so you're not guaranteed to see someone all the time if there's especially if there's a lot of people around, like the Shadow Assembly or something. It is co-developed with a Chinese company, NetEase, and more than any Blizzard game before, it has been made with the eye on the Asian markets. It's free to play, and there are all huge sea changes for Diablo. Okay, so on the other hand, for any Diablo player, particularly any Diablo 3 player, Diablo Immortal will feel comfortingly familiar. Kind of, sure, yeah. The series trademark isometric perspective, frantic combat with swarms of monsters, and fountains of loot are all present. I don't know about that. There's definitely a lot more loot and stuff to pick up in Diablo 3. In Diablo 3, I remember, playing with my clan and stuff, we would be at like 50 legendaries an hour. In Diablo Immortal, you're at like 1 an hour. So, plus you got like all of the different things that dropped in Diablo 3 with the death breaths and the gems. And there was a lot more stuff in Diablo 3. So I don't think it really rains loot like it did in Diablo 3. But then they say beyond that, Immortal has clearly been built on the Diablo 3 engine and uses the game's assets. Yeah, that is true. You'll fight like the same Rift Guardians and stuff like that. You'll see some of the same bosses and names and stuff, so that's fair. Retaining the feel and atmosphere of Blizzard's 2012 game. Immortal's artwork has the same richly colored golden glow. The combat is the same intoxicating firework display, and the clang and splatter of the sound effects offer a deep Pavlovian satisfaction. It's because Immortal is the same game in a new context that the opinion of different constituencies of its audience can vary so widely. Existing Diablo fans hate the way their favorite game has been monetized in its new free-to-play incarnation, while mobile game players who are more accustomed to the business model are impressed with the polished depth and scope that Diablo Immortal has inherited from its predecessors. I can give a little bit of perspective on this because I am both these people. Right here, this paragraph. I am an existing Diablo fan who has played every single Diablo game for thousands of hours and been a massive fan of the franchise since I was a kid. And I was even a content creator for Diablo 3 for a few years and ran an elite clan over there on Diablo 3. And then I've also been a Raid Shadow Legends content creator. I'm used to the mechanics of gacha and the tactics of mobile game developers and stuff like that. I don't know if impressed by the depth and scope is fair. I do think it's pretty well polished, especially for a launch. There wasn't a whole lot of like crashing. I mean, there was some, but it wasn't as bad as sometimes you see with brand new games. So the polish I'll give them. I don't know about the depth and scope. Like some of the stuff is very on the surface, like the different world events, like the haunted carriage and stuff. Like it's cool, but there's no depth to it. So I would actually push back a little bit on that in terms of like mobile gamers being impressed with some of that stuff. But it could get there. I do agree the polish and like the canvas of the game is pretty solid. Neither group is wrong, so we should just chalk this up to different stories and move on. Unfortunately not, because Diablo Immortal isn't just at the center of a video game culture war, it's also at war with itself. Okay, so what do they mean there? You wouldn't know it when you start playing the game at first. Diablo Immortal is as fun to play as it sounds, a lightweight, portable, social, and quick-fire version of Diablo 3. It's also more generous and open in its design than many of its free-to-play peers. There is no energy style mechanic restricting the amount of time you can play without paying. That's true, but there are a lot of caps that are a pseudo energy mechanic where it just makes sense for you to quit playing. So yeah, but there is still kind of a soft system in place that's basically an energy mechanic. None of the activities reside behind any kind of a paywall. That's true. Like you don't have to spend money to do some certain content or anything. You don't have to pay to play, unlock like PvP or anything. But the campaign is long, luxurious, and largely free to grind. On a few occasions where you are required to level up to progress, you will find a plethora of activities away from the main quest, including bounties, replayable dungeons, and randomized rifts to help you bridge the gap. That's true. You don't. There is some misconception clickbait out there that like you'll get from people that are level 18 or something, and they throw up a YouTube video saying they had to quit because the game is pay to win. It's like, no, you can get to max level and you can beat the campaign completely free to play. If you're willing to put in the effort and grind for the gear and stuff, you could be completely free to play and hit max level somewhere between like 20 and 40 hours, depending how experienced of an RPG player you are. In game guides, achievements, and activity trackers show you in-game rewards while helping you tour the game's bewildering array of systems. They do have a lot of systems on launch. That is true. There are even innovations here that the mainline Diablo games would do well to copy, like the build guide that suggests a loadout of skills. Yeah, I mean that was kind of cool. It definitely could have been implemented a little bit better, but yeah, there is some cool stuff that I hope they use in Diablo 4. You know, obviously apart from the legendary gems and the caps and stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely some interesting things to take away in terms of trying to innovate new things. It is only if you are deeply familiar with Diablo and its all-consuming item game in particular that you will notice that something is up. It becomes apparent that the loot and the equipable items that can transform your character's power, even to the point of altering how skills work, have been subtly shifted off center stage. Yeah, because it ends up becoming, you know, not your gear so much, but your legendary gems. For another, your items are now greatly enhanced by slotting them with legendary gems of enormous power. And this is where most complaints about Diablo Immortal's monetization have been focused. That is definitely fair and true. A Diablo Immortal character has 6 legendary gem slots. Each gem comes with a rating of 1 to 5 stars. Well, it's not really 1 to 5. It's 1, 2, or 5. As of right now in the game, we don't see 3 or 4 star gems, but it's weird how they worded it because like 1 and 2 star gems are locked at just 1 and 2 stars, but 5-star gems can roll 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. So it gets a little bit weird. Like you get a 5-star 2-star gem or a 5-star 3-star gem and all that. So it ends up being a little bit hard to explain to a new player, but there is no 3 or 4 stars, so it's not really 1 to 5. And these hugely impact its power. 5-star gems are much rarer than 1-star. Legendary gems can be upgraded, and the easiest way to do this is by consuming other legendary gems. A fully upgraded gem can then be further enhanced through gem resonance, and that requires, you guessed it, more legendary gems, up to 5 per item slot. That is true. It's a massive rabbit hole of needing to stack gems on top of gems. If you want to maximize your character, and maximizing your character is really what Diablo is all about, you need a ton of legendary gems to find the right ones to fit your build, to roll good star ratings, to upgrade the gems you have, and eventually to slot in each gem's additional resonance slots. It's endless. Well, it's not endless. You can do it, but it's going to feel endless for sure. Among Diablo's plethora of currencies, upgrade paths, and reward systems, legendary gems are where the business model hits hardest. Blizzard and NetEase have not been so crass to sell them directly via a loot box or a gacha mechanic, but what they have come up with is, in a way, even more troubling. Legendary gems only drop from the bosses of randomized Elder Rift dungeons, and you can only guarantee a legendary gem drop by applying a legendary crest modifier to the dungeon before you start it. Otherwise, the drop rates for the legendary gems are very low. Without spending any money in the game, you can get one legendary crest per month. Is that true? I mean, I guess if you're completely free to play and you don't buy the battle pass or anything, that might be true. It's definitely way too low. So whatever it is, 1, 2, 3, it's way too low. So that's fair. And even buying a battle pass will reward you with 1 or 2 additional crests for each month. Beyond that, you need to buy them directly. Legendary crests work out somewhere between $2 and $3 a piece. That's accurate. The huge number of gems you will need to maximize your character's equipment, especially considering the extremely low drop rate of 5-star gems, is the reason the cost of maxing your character in Diablo Immortal has been estimated between $50,000 and $100,000, potentially even more. Hey, that's good. They're accurate here. So they're not clickbaiting. They're not saying, $500,000 or $1 million or anything. Some of those figures were built on assuming the gem resonance system was going to need all 5-star gems, but it doesn't. You can put like 1 stars and 2 stars and stuff like that in the gem resonance. So yeah, this is pretty accurate. You should expect to max out like a realistic build you're going to use in game, probably somewhere in that $50,000 to $100,000 window, depending on your RNG and how the luck kind of scales with you, and what build you're actually doing in game with the gems that you're using and all that stuff. If you get deep into the gem resonance system, has a very cool breakdown that they're going to link to. Okay, cool. Then we scroll down and we've got Diablo Immortal has been given an exceptionally rough ride for its business model. That's for sure true. I don't know if I've ever seen a more mainstream rough ride, as they call it. Perhaps disproportionately, considering popular free-to-play rivals like Genshin Impact and Lost Ark are hardly free of similar gacha mechanics to lure in big whale spenders. That's true. There is definitely a little bit of hypocrisy going on in terms of like people that are totally fine with these games and people that are just think Diablo Immortal's the most immoral, awful thing on planet Earth. So, that's fair. I don't understand. Each person has their own opinions, and I'm obviously willing to listen to that, but I don't really understand how it's okay for one game to allow players to spend $500,000 and it's not okay for another one. But like I said, I'm always open to that argument. But coming from the Diablo universe and both the mobile gaming universe, I guess I don't really see it, because you can easily spend $500,000 in Raid Shadow Legends, and that didn't go anywhere near as mainstream, and people definitely don't like the monetization, but we never saw the viciousness that Diablo Immortal got. But not to say I'm defending Diablo Immortal, because I really want changes to the legendary gem monetization. But anyway, they go on to say Diablo's fame and reputation with a core PC gaming audience earned over a quarter of a century is surely a factor. That's definitely true. I think that's a big reason for the stuff that I talked about and why it's a little bit different. A game like Raid Shadow Legends didn't have a hardcore PC gaming fan base, but it's also true that this system is uniquely problematic, and the very nature of Diablo games has something to do with that. When you buy a legendary crest, you are not buying a roll of the dice as you do when you are purchasing a FIFA Ultimate Team card pack. You are buying a chance to load the dice to reach into the game engine and tweak the drop rate slightly in your favor. The addictive gambling mechanic are not separated from the addictive gameplay mechanics, but instead tied directly into combat and loot drops within the game. Diablo is scarily well positioned to do this. They link to another thing pointing that out. And these heavily loot-focused games have always tied into a slot machine quality, which Diablo Immortal's business model makes literal. So I don't really understand what they're saying here. They say that when you buy a legendary crest, you're not buying a roll of the dice. I mean, that's literally exactly what you're doing. You are buying a roll of the dice. Like, you're gonna run the Elder Rift, which takes like a minute, and then you roll the dice to see what you got. So I guess I'd have to ask them what they mean there, because you literally are buying a roll of the dice. With it, you're not guaranteed anything. It's a randomized roll of the dice. But anyway, the next paragraph is Blizzard has been at pains to point out that Immortal's monetization can safely be ignored until endgame, which is true, and it claims that the majority of players enjoy the game without spending a dime, which is plausible, but it's disingenuous to suggest that the primary pleasure of Diablo games resides in playing through the story rather than maxing out your character. Yeah, I talked about this in my video, going over their Blizzard's official top ranking board of directors or whatever. Their argument was like, you can play the campaign for free, and then everything else is just a bonus. That's the end game. I mean, but that's not fair to say. Like, it might technically be true, but you know, the PC, or not PC, but RPG gamers consider the story the tutorial, and then after that is the real game. So, you know, sure, it might be true, but it's not really fair to say that. It would be disingenuous to deny that these games have always been engineered to engender a hunger for hitting the power cap for their players, and for people with a tendency towards gambling addiction or toward addictive qualities of Diablo's item game, or even worse, both. The Legendary Crest system is exploitative and potentially very damaging. For everyone else, it simply makes Diablo less fun. And then we've got the last stretch here. So we have been here before, or somewhere like it. When Diablo 3 launched in 2012, it had a real money auction house. Yep. Where players could buy and sell their item drops. I was actually thinking about doing a video on this because I was there. I was there as a hardcore Diablo 3 player back in the auction house days. I flipped items, and I spent a fair amount of real money on some real money auction house stuff. So I can definitely relate to what that was like. So I was going to try to compare the different mechanics of the launch of Diablo 3 and Diablo Immortal here soon. But in theory, this existed to head off the cheating and scamming the best item trading in Diablo 2. Yeah, so, you know, instead of it being like back alley private DM deals where players are trading like peer-to-peer, Blizzard was trying to put it in game so that you wouldn't need to do that, but people still ended up doing it anyway because there was a cap of like 250 USD for selling an item for real money in game, and there would be uber whales that are willing to pay $5,000 for like the best weapon in the game. So people would still do this like back alley trading through DMs and forums and stuff. But in order to steer players toward the auction house, Blizzard lowered loot drop rates in the game to such an extent that equipping your character became a thankless grind, and the game felt unrewarding to play. That's absolutely fair. It was awful. The drop rates were so bad that you could play for 10 hours and literally not find anything. You just have a bunch of salvage scrap. It was really bad. When the unpopular auction house was removed and the drop rates were increased in 2014, Diablo 3 instantly became more fun, even before the innovations of Reaper of Souls expansion elevated it to classic status. Yep. So this is something a lot of people won't know that only played Diablo 3. The game really became pretty good with the expansion pack of Reaper of Souls. It became a good game, but it had such a bad first impression because of the auction house and because it was so buggy on launch and everything that it got such a bad reputation that kind of got lost in the wash a little bit of the gaming community. But Reaper of Souls was a great game. I really enjoyed it. They did a good job for the most part, not perfect. They needed a little bit more consistent content and a way to monetize it better to get more development support. But all in all, it was a pretty solid game and pretty fun. The lesson: it might make sense on paper to try and monetize Diablo's loot, but as soon as you do, you drain the fun out of the game. It's the same as Diablo Immortal, and it is noticeable before you hit the end game because it's baked deep into the game design. Loot drops are less impactful, while character progression is artificially throttled and thinly spread over too many systems, which are too grindy and too green. I don't think people mind the grindy aspect of it. Granular's fair, and throttled is definitely fair. It has been more artfully disguised than it was at the launch of Diablo 3, but it is a similar unrewarding slog. Buying a battle pass or spending big on legendary crests barely helps because paying for a great item drop will never be as thrilling as just getting one. Yeah, that's fair. I am not sure if there is a way to isolate the core of what makes Diablo fun from the mechanics of a free-to-play monetization. If there is, Blizzard and NetEase have not found it. That's for sure. I could talk about that for an hour. There's definitely ways to pull it off because, you know, I'm familiar with both. I'm familiar with the hardcore Diablo player, like I said, and also the mobile gacha mechanics. You could definitely do it. Maybe not make quite as much money, but you could make 75 to 80% as much money and pull it off for sure. They've made a mobile Diablo that is slick, enjoyable, and even generous at first. But if you spend enough time with it, there is no escaping the fact that at the heart of the game, has been cut out, chopped up, and sold back to you piecemeal. So already, you know, kudos to the article here. I think they did a pretty good job laying stuff out, and they were mostly accurate. They didn't really jump on the clickbait hype train of saying a bunch of crazy numbers and stuff. They were mostly based and fair and accurate. And the person, the author here, Ali Welsh, definitely knows what they're talking about here. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed giving some perspective on this. I think they made some decent points. And yeah, I just like to, you know, once a week go over something in the community and try to get a feel for what other websites and what other sources are saying about the game, and then reacting to it from the standpoint of somebody who's pretty all in on running an organization that is heavy invested into Diablo Immortal, and keep an eye on the landscape of everything that's going on out there. So yeah, let me know what you think down in the comments, and make sure to subscribe on your way out, because we'll have daily content keeping you in the loop of everything going on. That'll do it for me on this one. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.